There are 10 players that you need to keep a close eye on during week 1 of the preseason, and we'll tell you who they are next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. He is Landon McCool. And on today's show, we are previewing week 1 of the NFL preseason. We're going to talk about all the players that you must watch this weekend, including a couple deep sleepers who are starting to really put on shows during training camp. We'll also talk about the running back battle in Dallas. But I want to start with the rookie class because Brian Schottenheimer said that we are expecting to see several of the rookies play on Saturday night, including Caleb Downs and Malachi Lawrence. Now, I don't know how much Landon Caleb Downs is going to play, but I'm more interested to see where he plays on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I think, just to kind of give some more context here, since this is the first preseason game, Schottenheimer talked in press conference. It was probably a week ago, I think. It was early on, I think. But anyways, he talked about the process of deciding who was going to play in these games and kind of bucketizing these guys into groups a little bit. And there's 4 of them. There's the A, there's the B plus, the B, and then the C, right? And each one of them has like a designated amount of snaps they're going to play. A being the kind of starters like Dak Prescott, George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb, that are not going to play at all at the preseason. I would be surprised. They probably will warm up, right? Did they warm up last year?
I think that's what happened. They warmed up with their pads on just to kind of get used to the routine, but they didn't actually play.
So guys like Caleb fall into, I think, what's called B plus, right? Where he's a rookie, even though he's a high, a starter and a high thought of player, a star on this team already. I think he's likely to come in here and play something like 10 to 15 snaps. And like you said, the interesting part is going to be, is it going to be exclusively in the nickel? Is he going to be playing back at safety in some base looks? How are they going to deploy him? And how does this defense look, kind of formatted around him?
Yeah, and again, we just want to see him run around, make a tackle or two, and get the heck out of there because he's going to have a big role in week 1. But I think someone like Malachi Lawrence, who's also a first-round pick, I do think he needs more reps because it's just a bigger jump for him in competition going from UCF to the NFL. And that's not to say that he needs to play a whole half or a whole game or anything like that, but I would like to see him out there for an entire quarter and give him some snaps against the run and on 3rd and long, just to put him in some different situations. Because again, they're going to need him to be a contributor early on, unless they go out and sign a veteran or make a big trade. Like he's DN3 right now on this roster. I'd like to see him go out there and play well.
Yeah, I mean, if you can make the argument that Caleb Downs needs to go out there and get snaps just because he's transferring from the highest level of college into the NFL, you certainly can make the case for Malachi Lawrence, who really just needs snaps, and just needs a lot of them. And I think these opportunities, you're right, like he doesn't necessarily need to play, a whole half or anything like that. But I do think that he's firmly in the group of rookies that it is going to really, really be helpful for him to go out there, get those stats. Because look, like we talked about, it's just the first preseason game, but there is still, like, as we've discussed previously, there is still a step up in speed that there was, so regular training camp practice. I think they obviously got a great taste of that in the Rams practice on Tuesday, but I think this is also kind of on par with that. And someone who I think he'll get appropriate competition in this game against Seattle.
I would just love to see a couple true pass sets where he's able to use his speed, use his power and athleticism, and see if he can make any plays, because I certainly think he can. Now, there is a player who I do think should maybe play the entire game, and that's Drew Shelton, right? I don't expect Tyler Guyton and Terrence Steele to play much, if at all. Maybe they get a couple snaps. And the backup tackle situation is pretty rough to begin with. I think Shelton is a guy that if you told me he played the entire game, I would be like, okay, great. But that's totally fine with me. He needs these reps, especially if he's going to be the swing tackle on this team. I want to see Shelton play, and he really does need to play well to maybe calm some of the nerves here.
Yeah, and look, I mean, we've seen him out here as a jumbo tight end at time in some of these sets. So even when he's not in at tackle, I would like to see him maybe kind of go out there and check in with the ref, make sure that he's lined up appropriately, and running some of those sets in a game. Because look, that's also part of this too. Is like there's refs at these practices, but the kind of mechanism of doing things like that's also has to be practiced. And really, the preseason is the only opportunity you get when you're to actually go through the full motions of I'm an ineligible receiver, like making
Yes.
sure you're on the line when you're lined up and doing all the kind of mechanisms that are required to kind of properly line up.
You've seen Shelton in a lot of these practices. I mean, and again, you shouldn't judge players just based on one-on-one reps, but in the team drills, how has he performed?
I mean, I don't think that he has like stood out in a negative way as much as he did like early on in camp practices. And look, I think specifically the time when people got concerned were in these one-on-one situations where, as we pointed out before, like it's just not like always a fair representation of these players, right? But I think that since then I've obviously noticed him as the jumbo tight end with the first team, out there as the left and right tackle at the second team at different points, and it it looks like it's a matter of him still kind of getting the strength, or maybe if it isn't getting the strength, it's about unlocking the strength, because often the times what's happening is that you have the power that's required, you're just being put into bad position by the defender, and you don't know how to work your way back into good positioning in order to unlock your core strength. So I think that's what we're still seeing with him is a guy that there's guys that are getting into his chest and moving him off his spot. So I think the more pass sets he can get against uncommon opponents in this preseason, the more benefits he's going to get.
Another player who has really started to heat up in these practices is LT Overton, the defensive tackle, defensive end for the Cowboys. What do you expect? Let me back up. What have you seen from him in practice, and what do you expect to see from him in the preseason?
I think I just seen him a little bit more, just noticed him around the football more, in these drills, especially in team. I haven't really noticed him in any like first team reps necessarily. It seems like he's obviously sticking mostly to the second and third team, which is kind of appropriate at this point.
Well, did
But
you expect him to beat out Quentin Williams or Kenny Clark there, Liam?
not necessarily, or really
Okay.
even Tito. So I think, yeah, and I also think that he has kind of a very specific role at this point. Like he's not one of those 310-pound guys or
No.
290 to 295-pound guys. Like he's lighter than that. He's more of a let's work him in as we need him, and maybe even in specific alignments where he can play maybe power end a little bit, or pass rushing a three tech. So his usage has been a little bit sparing too. So I think kind of just seeing him out in this game, seeing how he gets deployed a little bit, and how he reacts to the very kind of specific deployment that we're expecting him to have during the regular season, I think that's going to be interesting to see.
Again, he's another player that I would love to see play an entire half, right? He needs these reps because he's playing. It's not really a new position, but it's going to be very different for him playing in the NFL against the strength and the speed of some of these interior offensive linemen. I just want to see how it looks. Does he have the necessary athleticism to create quick pass rush wins? Can he hold up at the point of attack? Him and Shelton are the two guys that I really think could benefit from playing 25, 30, 40 snaps in preseason.
Yeah, and honestly, another guy that I think that also could benefit out, and we'll see if he ends up actually getting cleared, is Jayshawn Barham. I mean, I know we've had high expectations because of what we've seen him do with the first and second team, but I still think because he has, he just doesn't have a ton of experience at either spot at this point, the more opportunities that he gets to kind of be on the field and just play natural linebacker, I think would be just really good for his development as well.
All right, let's talk about the running back battle in Dallas, because we expect Jaydon Blue and Phil Mafah to get a ton of work in the preseason. We'll discuss those second-year running backs next. This episode is brought to you by Odoo. Running a business shouldn't feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales, and yet somehow none of them talk to each other. That's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform. From sales and accounting to inventory and marketing, everything works in one place, helping your team move faster, stay organized, and focus on growing the business instead of just managing the software. Because the best organizations know that success isn't just about talent, it's about having everyone working toward the same goal. And that's true in sports, just like it is in business. I don't think the Seahawks were the most talented team in the NFL last year, but we saw them go out there and win the Super Bowl because they communicated so well. Great organizations win because operations matter. And that's why you should get Odoo. Try for free today at odoo.com/lockedon. That is odoo.com/lockedon. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. Don't forget to check out the Everydayer Club, where you can get ad-free episodes of the Locked On Cowboys podcast, plus exclusive Discord server access. Plus, you get a newsletter that is emailed to you every single morning. Just go to lockedoncowboys.supercast.com to join the club. All right, Landon, let's talk about this running back battle, because Jaydon Blue, Phil Mafah, they're still competing behind Javonte Williams for that RB2 job. And it seems like both these guys are going to get a lot of run.
Yeah, I mean, I think they both have performed well so far. I mean, obviously, we saw Blue had a fumble in the Rams practice, which was unfortunate. But I still think he's had a big explosive run almost every day in practice. So it's been encouraging, considering what we know about what his role potentially would be for the Cowboys. And then for Mafah, just, going out and continuing to look quick, decisive, explosive. I mean, the truth of the matter is, like, I mean, this is a competition, and obviously that's what's happening. But I can kind of almost anticipate where this might end up. Like it feels like if Blue just avails himself well enough, they're going to keep him probably as running back 2, and then see if they can sneak Phil Mafah onto the practice squad and try to find a way to retain him that way. Is how I would.
Let me ask you this: who do you think right now is leading this battle? Because I'm not there at practice, you are, but just by judging by how like Brian Schottenheimer is talking about it, it seems like it might be Phil Mafah.
I mean, I think that the thing about it is that I would use them differently. Like it's almost like I see them in different lanes, but if we're talking about who has been more consistent down in and down out, I think it's probably Mafah, because I think he's just been solid, like in a way that he looks like a more veteran running back who just is not necessarily explosive, right? I think the issue here is that the Cowboys have a very specific prescription for what they need from that other running back, and that is explosive plays. And that's what Blue kind of is a specialist at,
but
right?
Do they? I mean, I'm not trying to be argumentative, but what is more important for the backup running back job in Dallas? Is it someone who can create explosive plays, or is it, if Javonte Williams is out of the game or not playing in a game, to have a running back that you feel pretty good is going to hold on to the football and move the chains?
I think those are two arguments, though. I think having a running back who I can feel good about to continue to move the chains is something that, as you have well told us, is a guy I can get off the street at almost any point.
I don't
disagree.
Having
a guy who can create explosive plays in the run game, that's a more rare asset. That's probably why I would retain him on my roster, not risk him being exposed to the practice squad. And if Mafah gets picked up, that's unfortunate. But I know a guy named Malik Davis who happens to be able to kind of carry the load if I have to go that route, or any number of guys that are on the street who can come in here and give me 12 normal carries as a running back when Williams needs a break. I don't necessarily have a capability of going out and replicating what Blue can provide for this offense, but just by going out to the street free agency.
I mean, I totally understand that. And they probably should just keep all three of these guys.
That's agree.
But we know that special teams is going to be a factor in this as well. And I think with the defense keeping probably more players this year,
it's going to make it tough.
Yeah, it's going to make it tough. And we know Malik Davis can play special teams. We think Israel Abaconda can do it as well. Jaydon Blue or Phil Mafah, I think, is going to have to find a role on special team. But if you're going to be the primary backup behind Javonte, maybe you don't need it. And I'm just going to be curious to see how Brian Schottenheimer and Clayton Adams use these running backs on Saturday, because do they use Jaydon Blue just in space? Do they use him in the passing game? Or is it, hey, we want to have him run between the tackles to prove that he has the play strength to be an every down back? And because that's the thing, Landon, is there is a chance that Javonte Williams tweaks his ankle for a half, and you've got to rely on Jaydon Blue to be your every down back. I think Phil Mafah can handle it in spurts. I don't know about Jaydon Blue yet.
I think what you said that you're interested to see how Clayton Adams uses Phil Mafah, and I think that's right. But I think we should be more interested to see how Nick Sorensen uses Phil Mafah, because if Phil Mafah is able to come in here and play on some special teams, then suddenly that makes the math a lot easier. You can just keep him on the roster. And I think that keeping Williams, Blue, and Mafah, that gives you the kind of solution here. Because even if Williams has to go out for a game, like, I feel like the combination of Mafah and Blue could get you through a game.
And that's the truth of the preseason is, that's usually when the kicks happen in the game. That's when you usually get up off your couch and go get a drink, go get a snack. But that's what really matters in these preseason games is where are these guys being played? How often are they playing? How well can they play on, punt coverage and the return teams? Keep an eye on those units to see where Phil Mafah and Jaydon Blue are, or if they're not, it's a good sign of where they might be on this roster right now.
Yeah, absolutely. If you hear Phil Mafah makes a tackle on that punt coverage, that's when your eyebrow should be raised on his ability to actually make this roster.
Well, I think, wasn't it Terrell Davis that made a tackle on kick coverage, and that's kind of how he ended up making that Broncos team. Yeah, I mean, this is how late round running backs, and Phil Mafah and Jaydon Blue are late round running backs. That's how they make teams and eventually get chances to carry the ball on Sunday. Keep an eye out for those two running backs. I want to talk about some late sleepers, the guys that are fighting to make the active roster that you need to know on Saturday. We'll get to those four players next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Baseball fans, if you think you know who's hitting a homer today, FanDuel is giving you a free chance to call your shot with daily dingers. It's easy to play. You just make your free pick on who you think will hit a home run in their game. And if you're right, you'll receive a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. Best of all, you can make a free pick every day throughout the MLB season. Daily Dingers is another fun way to stay engaged with baseball, which is on every single day. Whether you're following your favorite team or keeping an eye on the matchups across the league, every game has someone that's capable of going deep. Now you get the chance to make your prediction before the first pitch. I love it. Baseball has got me through the summer with no football, and this is a great way to earn a little bit more money or to get some extra chances at bigger bets. So are you ready to play your game today? Join all of the action at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com to play Daily Dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer. Play ball and swing for the fences on FanDuel, an official partner of the MLB. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We are previewing the first preseason game of the year for the Dallas Cowboys. We don't expect many starters to play in this game. Don't expect Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, Quinnen Williams to play. And that means the second half of this game is going to be pretty ugly. However, all preseason games are ugly. There are some players that we are excited to see. And I want to start with Camden Brown, the wide receiver who we mentioned earlier this week from, I believe, Georgia Southern, played at your school, Auburn, for a little bit, starting to get more reps with the first team during Thursday's practice. I just want to see if it translates from the practice field to the preseason field this week.
It's just a side note. You say my team Auburn. It's just so depressing to see all these guys that are successful that were former Auburn players that transferred away. There's going to be another one at the University of Texas this year that I'm pretty upset about. Anyways, I think what you saw early on was, we kind of go out into these training camps expecting these guys, right? Like wait, okay, who's the down roster wide receiver who's going to come out and break out? And it felt like early on we didn't get that, because usually, I remember John Vea Johnson. Like, we're gonna have a name guy.
I feel bad for John Vea. We always single him out, but
Radaway is a more unfortunate situation than him. Yeah. So, but anyways,
my guy Kenyon Rambo from back in the day.
I mean, there's just so many of these guys. But usually, what happens is that it starts out early, right, and then they struggle as the kind of preseason and training camp goes on to kind of maintain that situation. But this year we didn't really get a standout candidate. At least I didn't see that. Obviously, a lot of us were thinking Trayshawn Holden would come out and do this. But then, we come out and there's this guy out there who has the gall to wear number 6 as a down roster, undrafted free agent receiver. And he starts coming out and making plays, and he's kind of narrow, and but he's really long, right? And I just remember, was it probably a week ago now, or maybe a little bit longer, him making that kind of horizontal on his back catch in the end zone for a touchdown, and then basically doing it again the next day, and just kind of really starting to make an impression. And it sounds like he may have gotten some reps with the first team this today, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So just really kind of the drum beat started a little bit late, but it's been really solid and loud these last few practices. So he's going to be an interesting guy for sure.
And what's funny is the other receivers who a lot of people were excited about going into camp, like Anthony Smith and Trayshawn Holden, and they've all had their moments, but it's really been Brown who has kind of risen above all those guys. And that's what we were hoping to see, is who would be the one guy that would kind of separate themselves from this back end group of receivers, because we know who the top 4 are. It gets really muddied, and from wide receiver 5 to wide receiver 12. I want to see if Brown can do it in the preseason. Another guy that I want to watch, Derion Kendrick, the cornerback who the Cowboys signed from the Rams. He played with the 49ers for a little bit as well. Not fast. He is a 4.7 cornerback, but he's had a good camp by all accounts.
He really has. He's come out here. He's made plays. He's loud in a good way. Just he's talking. He's getting people lined up. He's talking trash to the other side, and just brings an energy that was noticeable to the point where I was like, who's 15? Because and you lose track of some of these guys, but he was really impressive at certain points. I think he's going to get some opportunity here to get some good snaps. He's a guy that I think is probably fighting for that backup nickel role, right? Maybe a backup to Caleb Downs, but because I think you said it, right? A 4.7 athlete, and you can probably see that when he turns open up to try to run downfield on the 9 route. But I think in what you're asking in a short area zone situation, maybe a chasing a guy kind of horizontally for a little while, I think that's the kind of thing that he can do. And we'll find out a little bit more about him in this preseason game.
2 more players. Justin Barron coming off his Hall of Fame worthy performance earlier this week with 3 interceptions during the scrimmage with the Rams. I'm joking, but he is a player that's fighting for a spot on the roster. I don't expect him to get 3 interceptions in the preseason game, but he is a guy not to watch on defense, but really keep an eye on special teams, because if he's going to make the roster, it's going to be on special teams.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously what he did in the Rams camp was impressive, but if this guy's going to make the roster, it's going to be as a special teams ace. And that's kind of, I think, always been the angle for this guy, always been the kind of vision. I think he's taken to the linebacker quite well, and he's definitely taken advantage of the opportunities he's gotten there. Let's see if he can do that, against Seattle. But you're right. This is a classic situation where he's so good that we got to pay attention to his special teams in this game, because that's the only kind of players you're seeing in the preseason game number 1.
But this is how you rise up the depth chart, because if he ends up being the best special teams linebacker on the roster, It's not inconceivable that the Cowboys keep 4 linebackers active on game day, and he's ahead of someone like Shamar James, who we thought, much more of, at least going into camp.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, we have to stop thinking about it being just a list of who are the best players. It's
Correct.
about game day fit. You only have 53 of these guys you can take to the roster. Maybe you can finagle that depending on what you're talking about. But you got to find a way to use those guys so you can fill all the roles, including special teams.
One more, Isaiah Land, former preseason star of the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
I think he's a really good fit in this defense. He's got some juice off the edge. I expect him to play a bunch as well.
Yeah, another guy who had a really good practice versus the Rams, had a sack and a tackle for loss. We've seen him do this before, and see them have an impressive preseason. There's a reason he keeps getting brought back by the Cowboys. They feel like there's something there, and I agree. This is kind of much like Sam Williams. This is I think a better fit for what they try to do, and it's a lot easier to hide the deficiency they may have in their game and kind of emphasize that kind of speed and athleticism that you've seen from these guys on the edge.
All right, that is it for today's show. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen today. The Locked On NFL Top 100 is here, voted on by the NFL host of the Locked On Podcast Network. Our Top 100 was formed by experts that cover these teams and players every single day. Find the full list on Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. About a week ago, Landon and I talked about Dak Prescott's ranking, George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb, and of course the outrageous Quinnen Williams ranking. Make sure you go check that out as well. Follow Landon on X at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosher. Enjoy the game, and we'll see you right afterwards to break it all down.